Good morning, Tina. My name's Ava Thompson and I'm a licensed conveyancer here at Harbourview Property Legal Services. How are you going today?
I'm alright, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks, and thanks so much for meeting me here today.
Thanks for having me.
That's okay. So before we begin, I just want to let you know that I'll be firstly taking your instructions in relation to your sale of the property.
Yep.
And I'll also be asking any questions about the contract and the circumstances surrounding it. And also provide preliminary advice where needed. However, if any complex issues do arise throughout our meeting, I'll just refer those issues to for you to get independent legal advice and for a senior solicitor to provide that final confirmation for you. So before we proceed, are you happy to proceed on that basis?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. So can you please just firstly explain in your own words what's happened in relation to the sale of the property and what's brought you here to meet with me here today?
Yeah, so a buyer, Michelle Alberts, has made an offer on our property.
Yep.
And Robert just accepted it because he said we're in serious financial trouble
Yep.
and that this was our best chance to avoid foreclosure.
Yep.
The contract has now been signed and I contacted the office to get the conveyancing started like Robert wanted.
Yeah, okay. And Robert won't make it here today?
No.
Yeah, no worries. So thank you for explaining that. And how are you feeling about the sale now that it's been signed?
I'm not really comfortable with it. I thought the
Okay.
price was too low
Yep.
and everything happened really quickly.
Okay, can you tell me, are you able to elaborate on that a little more? Like what about the process made you uncomfortable?
I didn't feel like there was enough time to think about it
Yep.
properly and Robert kept saying we had no choice.
Okay, did you feel like you had a genuine opportunity to make your own decision about whether to sign the contract? Like, do you feel like there was negotiations and fairly?
Not really. I felt like I had to go along with it.
Okay, and how did Robert speak to you about the sale when the offer came?
He was very insistent and he said it was our only chance and if we didn't take it, we could lose everything.
Okay, I see. And thanks, Tina, for explaining that. So I just want to ask you a few more questions because it seems like you're a little uncertain about how the contract came to be signed. And I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that you were acting freely and that you weren't under any pressure. So at the time you signed the contract, did you personally want the sale to go ahead or did you feel like you really had no option?
I didn't feel like I had an option at all.
Okay, and what's your main concern at the moment? Is it because the sale coming under the market value, or is it the way the contract was signed, or both? What's you mainly concerned about?
Both.
Yep.
I think the price is too low and I don't think I really agreed to it.
Okay, and so what outcome are you hoping to achieve here today? Are you wanting advice about whether the contract can still proceed, or whether it may be possible to stop or challenge, or you're just wanting to know your rights?
I would really like to know if it can be stopped
Yep.
or challenged because I just don't think it was handled properly.
Okay, so I just would like to ask a few more questions to better understand the contract and its circumstances, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, was the contract in writing? I assume so.
Yes, it was.
Great. And are you able to obtain a copy of that signed contract? Do you hold one?
Yes.
Great. And did yourself and Robert both sign that with the purchaser as well?
Yes, we both signed it.
Great. And has the contract become unconditional? How long's the contract been going on for? It is unconditional?
Yes, it's unconditional.
Okay. And I assume the deposit would have been paid in that circumstance?
Yeah.
Great. So do you know whether settlement has already been booked? Are you close to settlement?
I don't think it's booked. There is
Yep.
still a bit of time before settlement.
Okay. And so back on the price, do you believe the offer was below that market value?
Yes, I do.
Great. Do you have any appraisals to approve that, such as a real estate agent appraisal or an independent valuation?
Not yet, but I could get some
Yep.
if needed.
And did you obtain any independent legal advice before you entered into the contract?
No.
Okay. Did anyone explain to you the terms of the contract and the consequences behind entering into agreement?
No, not properly.
Yeah, okay. So based on what you've explained, there appears to be a signed contract for the sale of land between you and Robert Gurney as the vendors,
Yeah.
and also Michelle Alberts as the purchaser.
Yeah.
So its purpose is to record the agreement for the sale and purchase of the property, and the contract would include terms such as the purchase price, the deposit, and any other contractual terms and settlement terms as well. So does that sound consistent with your understanding?
Yes.
Great. So I'll just briefly explain the basic elements of a contract. So for a contract to be legally binding, there is usually an offer. So one party will propose terms.
Yeah.
Acceptance, where the other party would agree to those proposed terms, or maybe there's negotiations, but they've got to accept terms in the end. Consideration, meaning that something of value is exchanged. So in this case, there's a purchase price in exchange for the property.
Yep.
That's been an intention to create legal relations, meaning that the parties must intend for this to be legally binding. Capacity, meaning that the parties must be legally capable of entering into the agreement,
Yep.
such as they must have the legal capacity to understand, and also the parties must be over the age of 18. And also legality, meaning that the agreement must be lawful, which means that it can't be illegal.
Yep.
So in this matter, there appears to be that written contract that includes the purchase price and all parties have appeared to sign it. So many of those huge elements of the contract formation appear to be present. However, even when those basic elements are present, the enforceability of a contract can still be questioned if a person signed the contract under duress because of that improper pressure rather than through a free and voluntary decision.
Okay.
So do you have any questions before I move on?
Not
Yep.
just yet.
No problem. So the main issue is whether the contract would likely still be upheld if there is evidence that you signed the contract under pressure from Robert, rather than making that free and independent decision on your own.
Okay.
So contract of sale is not automatically invalid simply because one party later regrets signing it. The more important question to consider is whether you signed it voluntarily, and whether there was improper pressure from Robert, and whether you had the genuine opportunity to make that informed decision by yourself.
Okay.
So if you signed it voluntarily, even though you were worried about the financial situation, then the contract may still be enforceable and probably would still be considered enforceable. However, if the pressure was significant enough to overbear your free will, and we could prove that, then there may be grounds to challenge the contract.
Okay.
So at this stage, I cannot give final advice because I'm a licensed conveyancer, I'm not a lawyer, relating to the enforceability of the agreement. So that will depend on, one, the contract itself, two, the surrounding circumstances, and any evidence that you may hold to suggest that you weren't making those proper decisions and that you were under duress.
Okay, so the contract isn't automatically invalid just because I feel unhappy now?
That's correct. So being unhappy afterward on its own is not enough. That's probably called buyer's remorse, and that happens quite a lot.
Okay.
However, the issue is whether the pressure affected you when you acted, and you weren't acting freely and voluntarily when you signed. So just while we're discussing this now, I assume your understanding is that you weren't acting voluntarily at the time of signing?
Yeah, that's
Great,
it.
no worries. So in your case, the important issue is the circumstances in which you signed the contract. So you've explained that Robert accepted the offer quickly,
Yeah.
and that you thought that the price was well below the market value. And you also mentioned that you felt under pressure because Robert said that this is the only way to avoid financial collapse and foreclosure.
Yeah.
So the legal concern is whether that pressure may amount to improper influence, or pressure such as that your agreement was not given freely and that you didn't make those choices independently.
Okay. I know that Robert was worried about foreclosure, but does that automatically mean I was under pressure in a legal sense?
No, it's not automatically. Financial stress by itself does not always make a contract invalid. The important question is whether the pressure became so strong due to those financial concerns that you were no longer able to act freely and voluntarily when you signed. So if that can be established, there may be grounds to challenge the contract. However, on the other hand, if the circumstances are viewed as a difficult financial decision but still a voluntary one, then the contract still may be upheld. So the fact that you didn't obtain independent legal advice before signing is also important.
Okay. Does that mean Robert may have done something wrong?
Yes, so potentially, but that depends on how strong the evidence is regarding the pressure that you were under, and whether that affected your ability in making a free and voluntary decision at the time of signing.
Okay. And if the price was too low, does that help me?
It may help as part of the overall circumstances, particularly if it supports the argument that the sale was rushed or unfair, but on its own, I would assume that probably would not be enough.
Okay.
Now moving on to some remedies. So there may be a few remedies or options that may be available depending on how strong the evidence is that you weren't able to make those voluntary decisions by yourself. So first, there may be grounds to seek to challenge the enforceability of the contract if it could be shown that you did not sign freely and voluntarily.
Okay.
Second, if settlement has not yet occurred, it may be possible to try and at least delay settlement while the legal position is being investigated further.
Okay. Can we stop settlement right away?
Possibly, but that will depend on timing and how close we are to settlement, and also the available evidence that you have, and also what urgent steps are recommended from a senior lawyer once they review your case.
Okay.
Another one is there may be scope for negotiation with the purchaser. So, for example, by placing the contract in dispute, or attempting to reach a resolution just between the parties, because maybe if we seek mutual termination, the purchaser will simply just let you go.
Okay.
So if the matter can't be resolved between those negotiations, then court proceedings may be required
Okay.
to determine whether that the contract remains enforceable due to you being under duress when signing the agreement. So the advantages of acting early are that settlement may potentially be delayed, or the matter might just be resolved before completion, given there's so much time before completion.
Yeah.
However, the disadvantages are that a challenge may not succeed if the evidence of the pressure is not strong enough, which means the court action can be costly as well and time consuming, and it may not result in the outcome you're after.
Okay, but it's not necessarily straight to court.
No, absolutely not usually. So usually the first step is to gather the documents and all the evidence, and then once you've got all that, obtain legal advice, and then consider whether the matter can be resolved without court proceedings.
Okay, and is there any way for settlement to be stopped immediately?
Possibly, but that will depend on timing, the evidence available, and also our senior lawyer reviewing your case in its entirety, so they can provide those appropriate next steps.
Okay.
So there are a number of issues that I need to refer for further advice before final confirmation can be provided. So this would include whether the pressure from Robert was significant enough to affect the enforceability of the contract, whether the contract may be challenged on that basis, and whether the price being below market value also plays a role. Also, what urgent action should be taken before settlement, and also whether you should obtain independent legal advice, considering that, as we're also representing Robert, there is a little bit of a conflict of interest should you wish to challenge the contract and if his opinions conflict yours.
Okay.
So because there may be issues of pressure, influence, and a difference between your position and Robert's, I would strongly recommend that you do obtain independent legal advice. A solicitor certificate or written independent advice may also be appropriate depending on the circumstances. So while I can provide preliminary guidance today, final advice should be confirmed by a solicitor after reviewing all the information in the contract, and I also would recommend that point too.
Okay. Why do I need independent legal advice if I already saw a conveyancer?
Because your interests may not fully align with Robert's position, which means independent legal advice would help ensure that your own position is properly protected and assessed.
Okay.
Because if you get independent legal advice, that's your own legal advice. Therefore, you can guarantee that they're going to be representing you, not just you and Robert.
Okay. Yeah.
So just so I can confirm my understanding of your instructions, I understand that you would like advice on whether the contract of sale can be challenged because you felt pressured by Robert to sign the contract, and also whether the agreed sale price was too low and what steps may be available for you to potentially terminate the contract and just to protect your interests. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Great. So thank you so much for meeting me here today and for explaining that. I know it's very tough circumstances. So the next step for us now would be to review that signed contract and also obtain evidence concerning the market value of the property, as that will assist. And also I strongly recommend that you obtain independent legal advice as soon as possible to understand your rights in this situation. Now after that, the matter can be considered further to determine whether the contract may be challenged and what practical steps should be taken before settlement. And if you obtain independent legal advice, they'll be able to outline those next steps as well. So did you have any further questions before we end the meeting here today?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
No problem at all. And thanks for meeting me here today.
Thanks for having me.